Okay, we're live, but we got to let the stream breathe just for a second. Make sure we're getting those beautiful green check marks across all 5 streaming platforms. And we are good. Welcome in, everybody, to the Huddle Up podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle and powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me, as always, my partner in crime, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. He is Zach Kelberman. Zach, it was interesting. I know we got yesterday when we went live on our Sunday evening podcast, of course, there was a game going on. There's a game going on tonight with the Chiefs and the Patriots. But before we talk anything about that particular matchup and the implications thereof on the Denver Broncos, the breaking news today, not exactly Bronco related, but the Houston Texans relieving their head coach / GM Bill O'Brien of his duties after the Texans get out to an 0-4 start. The pressure was on, I guess, when he made that monumental trade, a few trades actually that, in hindsight didn't look so hot. But what was your gut reaction to that?
I think the last straw was today he gave himself play calling duties. So he's already the general manager, he's the head coach, and now he's the play caller. And I believe it was Cal McNair who just had enough. Yeah, they couldn't go through with the Bill O'Brien era anymore. And this is not a Texans podcast, but this is good for Deshaun Watson. It's good for David Johnson. It's good for all those players in Houston because Bill O'Brien, Chad, was not cutting it. He was one of the worst head coaches in the entire NFL. And when VJ was around, he rivaled VJ for that honor. So it's good for Houston. Not really good for the rest of the AFC. Romeo Crennel's the interim coach, and I think he will be better than what B.O.B. brought to the table.
I still remember, what was the line that Bill O'Brien dropped on VJ when he botched the end of that game? It involved an expletive because, of course, it's Bill O'Brien. But
I gotta find that. I gotta find it.
Thanks, Vance, you dumbs.
Right? It was something like that. Yeah.
F-word. But here's the thing. This is just a quick aside as it relates to Bill O'Brien. Let me put it this way. I never liked him as the former, of course, Patriots OC in between their time apart from Josh McDaniels. And then he goes on to coach, Penn State. And then he comes back to the league. But that year that that Hard Knocks was on the Houston Texans, and you got to see a little bit of the Bill O'Brien, the man and his family and his son that has special needs and all that. It just made me actually appreciate him a lot more. And he got a little bit out over his skis, the last couple of years. He won that power struggle, ended up becoming the full-on shot caller as far as football operations in Houston. But, he'll live to fight another day. It's not often, Zach, that a head coach that exits with 4 out of the 6 seasons, having been to the playoffs, a couple of division titles, a plus 500 record as a head coach. It's not often that those guys get sent packing. But in this case, the pressure was on, man, when he made some of those trades in the offseason. So happy trails, I guess, to Bill O'Brien.
Because there's only one Bill Belichick, and every coach that he spawned that's tried to be Belichick has fallen short completely. When you're the GM and the head coach, Chad, it's only a handful of people who can do that job adequately, and Belichick is one of them. So, Eric Mangini, Adam Gase, all these wannabes, Josh McDaniels, all these Belichick wannabes can never cut it outside New England. Bill O'Brien, I think he'll take like a year off away from the NFL. He should resurface maybe as an assistant coach or a coordinator, but his time as a head coach, that ship has long sailed away.
So today we're excited. We're going to talk about the Denver Broncos rookie class because we are at a little bit of I wouldn't say a break point. It is that kind of mini buy in between week 4 and week 5 where the Broncos are getting 10 days off. But we're going to go through and talk about the rookie class. We're going to bring on one of our superstars and official Facebook supporters that you all know and love, and Steve Griffith here in just a minute. We figured, hey, man, we have a little downtime. Things slowed down with regard to the Broncos news cycle because of the mini buy. And so we thought, hey, let's catch up on some of our superstars who maybe we either want to talk to again, like Mike yesterday, and Steve, who we haven't had a chance to meet with and talk with on the show. So we're kind of catching up in that vein this week. And, of course, the Broncos return to the building tomorrow. On Tuesday, we're going to find out if Drew Lock, of course, he's going to throw. We're going to find out how he did, how he felt. And the week starts again. That's when the news cycle will pick back up. But in the meantime, Zach, we have some time to let our hair down, analyze what this team has done and how it's performed through the first quarter of the season. So get any questions that you have. We'll take them all. Get your super chats ready if you have them. We'll get to them here in just a few minutes. But Zach, before we get to matters of business, and then of course welcome on Steve, did you see that the Broncos announced today, a little press release, that they are going to allow no more, no less, 5,700 fans for their remaining 6 home games of this season?
Yeah, it's good for Broncos country. It'll help the Broncos a little bit of a home field advantage, but it's on the players and the coaches, Chad. I'm not putting the stock in the crowd noise or the crowd atmosphere. If the Broncos play good football, limited fans or no fans, they'll be A-okay.
All right, really quick here. We need to bring on Steve, but give me just 1 second. I am having a little bit of a slow computer for some reason, so bear with me just 1 second here, gang. I should have had this loaded up ahead of time, but I can remember most things, but some things I definitely need to have the script in front of me. But guys, this particular episode, as you guys know, it is brought to you by, this live stream episode is brought to you by sportsbetting.com. And right now, if you guys head on over to sportsbetting.com, you can get a risk-free week of betting up to $500. And sportsbetting.com, of course, they've got I'm sorry, bear with me 1 second here. This thing is, there it is. Sportsbetting.com, you get sharp odds, you get low juice, you get hassle-free bonuses, you get 24/7 live customer support, and it's always a real person in the United States. The kicker, though, again, is that 100% risk-free week of sports betting up to $500. It's not just one bet. It can be all of your bets. You can play for a week. If your losses exceed your winnings, at the end of the week, sportsbetting.com is going to cover 100% of the difference up to that $500 mark. And, of course, you can roll it over one time as well. So with sports gambling in general being legal in the state of Colorado, head on over to sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle. That's sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle, and capitalize on a risk-free week of sports betting up to $500. All right, a couple of quick matters of business as well, and then we'll get Steve on here. Gang, follow the podcast on Twitter at HuddleUpPod, also at Mile High Huddle on Twitter. If you have those 2 accounts followed on Twitter, you're not going to miss anything as it relates to the podcast or breaking Broncos news and analysis. Gentle reminder, check out huddleuppod.com and get your swag on. Get yourself an MHH trucker hat, get a Football Priest t-shirt, get a Let 'em Hate t-shirt, get the Football Priest hat. There's face masks, there's mugs, there's hoodies, there's a little something for everybody, male, female, adults, children, teens. There's a little something for everybody. If you're in a position to patronize the merch store, it's another way to support what we're doing here at MHH, bringing you this content each and every day. And if you're not in a position to do that, it's all good. Each one of you can do these 3 things: subscribe, like this video. This is especially crucial if you're one of our Facebook community members or on YouTube. Like this video. And then if you really think that Zach and I are doing a good job for you covering this team and bringing you this content and the conversation and the community on a daily basis, the best thing you can do is share this video out there. If you think we're doing a great job, share this episode out there. Help MHH and the Huddle Up podcast continue to grow and reach new like-minded Broncos fans just like you. And then one last thing here, Zach, got to shout out our Facebook supporters. You'll see your names flashing across the ticker here on the bottom. There's too many to name individually, but we appreciate each and every one of you. Steve, who we're going to bring on here in just a second, is one of our Facebook supporters as well. Also supports the brand, also supports MHH on YouTube as a superstar. But we love you guys. If you're one of our Facebook community members, you'd like to become an official supporter, just go to the page, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. You'll see the big blue button. That's how you can become an official supporter. All right, so without further ado, Zach, let's bring on Steve Griffith to the show. There he is in the flesh, rocking the Let 'em Hate shirt like a true boss. He knows the drill. What's up, Steve? It's good to have you on the show, my friend. Thanks for making some time for us.
Hey, I appreciate it. It's an honor. Thanks for having me.
We were talking about this, of course, a little bit before the show, just kind of giving you the rundown, what to expect here tonight. And, of course, you are in the fine state of Colorado, but it is the Denver Broncos. So you do exemplify the hashtag state of being. Broncos country, as you know, we say this on the podcast, is not a geographic location. It is a hashtag state of being. And, of course, we want to get your thoughts on some of the pressing Broncos issues of the moment. We're going to get to that. But first, tell us and the community here how you became such a passionate and outgoing Broncos fan.
Well, I guess I'll age myself a little bit. I actually became a fan in 1986. Most people remember that season pretty well. A lot of triumph and joy, then heartache at the end with the Giants loss in the Super Bowl. But yeah, I was hooked ever since that playoff run.
I was indoctrinated as a child into the orange and blue faith, most definitely. The first game I can actually remember watching of the Denver Broncos, though, was the next Super Bowl against Washington and Doug Williams. And of course, the Broncos get out to such a hot start like they did in those first two Super Bowls with Elway, only to relinquish the lead in a hurry and then end up getting blown out. But all right, Zach, I know you got a couple questions, but let me just fire one more over here to Steve. We've been talking a lot about the Denver Broncos getting out, of course, to an 0-3 start. Then they punctuate the first quarter of the season with a win against the Jets. And, it was a clash of two 0-3 teams. Broncos come out on top. Tell us how you're feeling about the Denver Broncos at the quarter mark of the season. You got still 12 more games to go. You're getting guys like Drew Lock back here very, very soon. A.J. Bouye, Phillip Lindsay, Draymond Jones, DeMarcus Walker. There are other guys. Noah Fant temporarily out. He'll be back. What's your outlook? How are you feeling about your team?
Well, I'm still excited that we have a young core. I'm definitely not on that bandwagon of guys wanting to tank for Trevor. I think Drew Lock's the future. I'm just really excited. Coaching is kind of an issue, I believe, but just the young core of players, anybody should be excited. That's a fan.
Steve, I'm curious, you're kind of like a veteran Broncos fan, and you kind of know the deal by now where I'm going with this. What is your favorite memory as a Broncos fan? And conversely, what is your worst memory as a Broncos fan?
Favorite's got to be Super Bowl 32, that first Super Bowl victory. That one's always going to be probably my favorite. Worst, man, those Super Bowl losses in the 80s they're up there. Maybe the 49ers, and that was brutal. The Giants game wasn't too bad. I figured we were kind of in that game until the end. But, I think that 49ers Super Bowl was probably the worst.
We don't get that too much, Chad. We usually get Vance Joseph or Paxton Lynch. We don't get, the 80s and the 90s.
But see, I'm guessing, Steve, that you're probably born in the late 70s like I am. Yeah?
Yeah,
so,
78.
And I'm 79. So we are both children of the 80s. And as I mentioned, of course, the Redskins game was the Redskins Super Bowl was the first Bronco game I can remember. By the time we rolled around to that Niners Super Bowl, the very next, actually 2 seasons later, because the 88 was the Niners and the Bengals. So the Broncos skipped a year, came back 89. But by the time we got to that Super Bowl, I was fully locked in and a fully engaged young Denver Broncos fan, watching each and every game. Collecting all the cards, racking up all the posters, Three Amigos, all that stuff. And so when the Broncos got blown out 55-10 by the Niners, that game made me hate for the first time anything in this world. I absolutely hated Joe Montana. I hated the San Francisco 49ers. I hated, by that point, I think it was Bill Walsh. No, that was Seifert, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, I hated the Niners, right? That game brought out to me the realities of sports passions and sports hatred. But I do remember that as well. I'm with you. That was a very low moment. I would also throw out there, of course, the botched snap in Super Bowl 48, where everybody just felt that sickening pit in their stomach and those iron butterflies, just crushing your soul.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to Zach's point, I have to say that, Vance Joseph, that was a pretty dark time. Josh McDaniels, but everybody has that answer, so I had to change it up.
All right, bear with me 1 second. Go ahead, Zach.
No, I just wanted kind of your outlook. Okay, the Broncos are 1-3. They picked up a much-needed victory, Steve, against the Jets. Where do you see the season going from here? Not necessarily a record prediction, but do you see the Broncos stacking some wins? Do you see Drew Lock coming back and finding success? What's your opinion?
With the injuries, I'm not quite as optimistic as I was at the beginning. I'm thinking 6-10, 7-9. I think we are going to stack some wins. This is a pretty brutal part of the schedule that we're getting through right now, outside of the Jets. So that's kind of where I'm at. Before I was at 11-5, 12-4, that sort of thing. But yeah, not now.
It's pretty hard to overcome an 0-3 start, and it's pretty tough to overcome the loss of your number one rush linebacker, your number one defensive lineman, your number one corner, your number one quarterback, your number one wide receiver, your number one running back. I mean, you could pick Phillip Lindsay, but yeah, the tight end. It's been a complete comedy of injuries, and there's nothing funny about it, but it's been a comedy nevertheless. All right, last question for you here, Steve, with regard to some of the issues of the moment. You might have noticed a lot of fans kind of getting the on social media. You spend a lot of time on Facebook. I do as well. We both spend time on Twitter. You've seen it, and even in our community, and some of the conversation, we've seen it from the community here in the live streams. But the grass is greener kind of mentality, we're a fraction. I don't want to paint with too broad of strokes because it's definitely not a majority that I'm seeing in Broncos country, but that fraction of Broncos country that is ready to give up on Drew Lock has latched on to Brett Rippon and is saying to themselves, man, if only we had a Justin Herbert, we'd be somewhere at this point. But what's your take on overall on the question of Drew Lock? I know we've already touched on it a little bit here, but do you still have faith in Drew Lock? And if you do, why do you still have faith in Drew Lock being the guy for this team?
I absolutely have faith in Drew Lock. Like I said, I'm nowhere near on that wagon of the guys that are saying Tanker Trevor. I mean, yeah, he's a talented quarterback, but to be able to just drop everything and put your hopes on a kid that can come out of college, he's unproven in the NFL. You can't throw your baskets in that. We have somebody who's proved he can win. We got to run with him. We have a supporting cast. We're just banged up right now.
Steve, real quick.
Yes.
Brian Hoyer versus Brett Rippon. Broncos versus Patriots. Who you got?
It's going to be a tough game. I'm watching the Patriots tonight, and they don't look too bad with Hoyer at the helm. So if our defense can show up, I think that we have a chance to beat anybody.
Very true.
Zeus McPeak jumping in with a little shout out for you, Steve. Appreciate you, Zeus,
Thank you,
with the
Steve.
generosity as always on Super Chat. One of our MHH Mount Rushmore members and a superstar in the community, the first superstar in the community. He says, I'm an 80s kid as well. Steve rocks. Shout out to all the 80s kids, those of us that are in our early to mid to maybe even late 40s. But Steve, again, buddy, thanks for making some time for us here. I know that we'd been talking about getting you on here for about a month, but once the season started, we got into the role of covering the news, and it finally worked out to get you on the show. So it's been great getting a chance to meet you and talk with you, find out your background, find out where your passion for this team came from. So we'll, of course, want to get you back on in the future. But again, thanks for making time for us here tonight on the Huddle Up podcast.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys. It's been an honor.
By the way, his Twitter account, it doesn't show it on the screen, but his name, Steve Griffith, Griffith spelled with an E. It's his Twitter handle. Follow him at Steve Griffith. It's pretty easy to remember. And by the way, Kenneth Booker jumping in to say my worst moment was Jay Cutler having that great win against Cincinnati and then losing to the sorry 49ers. My favorites were the wins against Warren Moon in the playoffs. Definitely feel that. But Steve, we got to cut you loose for now, my friend. Have a great night. We'll see you hopefully here in the stream in the very near future.
Sounds good. You guys rock.
All right, appreciate you, my friend.
Let him hate.
There he goes, Steve Griffith in the house, and we thank him for making some time for us. Always great getting a chance to catch up with the superstars and the passionate fans in our community, Zach. And Steve is up there and, rocking the Let Him Hate t-shirt. Just we smile from ear to ear. It makes us proud.
It does, and he's no BS. A lot like Mike last night, Chad. Just a very realistic, not an idealistic Broncos fan. Tells it like it is. He still has faith in his team, but he can identify their shortcomings. I will always respect a fan like that.
All right, let me see here. Edward Keating jumping in. Good to see you, Ed.
Thank you.
Appreciate the super chat as always, and the YouTube freaking profile pic. Talk about making us proud. Makes us proud, my dog. I heard we signed Nigel Bradham. Yes, so if you missed the live stream from Sunday night, the Denver Broncos did, Zach, in fact, make it official today with their press release. Nigel Bradham has been signed, but to the practice squad. So what that means is, like you've seen in each game so far this year for the Denver Broncos, they have utilized the new rule that allows teams to elevate two players on game day to the active roster. So, Zach, I would maybe not this week. We'll see, just because your strength in numbers, you have guys at linebacker. You're probably going to need to bring up a couple of D-line guys like Sly Williams and Darius Kilgo, perhaps, that are on the practice squad. But it wouldn't be a surprise, obviously, to see Nigel Bradham elevated in Week 5 against the Pats.
It wouldn't be a surprise if I understand maybe 1 week of him learning the playbook, but they shouldn't waste any time. He's a traditional, real 3-down inside linebacker. He can help cover running backs and tight ends. They don't really have that guy on the roster. They have good run support guys. So get him on the 53, keep him there, and he will make an impact. I love this Bradham signing.
All right, let's grab Mike Evans. Everyone knows Mike. He was on the show last night. Had a great conversation catching up with
boss.
Mike. Love you, buddy. One of the true superstars as well in our community. He's in every stream. And when he's in the stream, he's showing love and supporting MHH and keeping the gears turning, keeping the lights on at MHH Central on YouTube. Love you, bro. He says, I would give our draft class an incomplete grade. Besides Judy, the rest of the class has been quiet. Also, who will be the third quarterback? Appreciate y'all. So let's say when Drew comes back is what he's getting at. Of course, Brett Rippon's going to be the backup. Does Denver keep Blake Bortles or do they keep Jeff Driscoll? They're on the hook, obviously, to a larger degree with Jeff Driscoll financially, but what do you think, Zach?
Who cares? I mean, they have their franchise guy back. Rippon is the good number 2. He's a bridge starter if anything should happen. The third quarterback, if they get down to that, if they lose Locke and Rippon, who cares at this point? If you had to make a decision, I'm going Jeff Driscoll. I just don't want Blake Bortles anywhere near this locker room, anywhere near this culture. That's who I would go with, Driscoll.
On that same topic, though, Mike, thank you for the perfect segue. The content topic of tonight's show is we want to grade this rookie class through 4 games. Now, again, it's easy to say incomplete because it is incomplete, right? It's only a quarter of the season. So the grade is a quarter of the way there. Just like when you were in school, whether you were in elementary school, high school, and college, you could start out the semester, the first quarter of the semester, you could get behind the 8 ball and not do so hard. But if you finish strong, you can get your grade up right where it needs to be. So whatever grades we render here tonight, talking about this rookie class, keep in mind that they are ultimately incomplete, and each and every rookie, whether they are at a good point right now or if they need to, step their game up, they have a chance to tweak, edit, elevate, improve their grade. And at the same time, they could lower their grade if they end up struggling. A lot of rookies, Zach, they hit the rookie wall about halfway, about 10 weeks into the season. That's about when their bodies are used to being able to, in college, finally get that break. And in the NFL, they got to learn to kind of push through that. So let's start with it. We'll keep it kind of flowing with the content and going back and forth to the chat stream. But let's start with Jerry Jeudy. And I just want to set the table for a second here. Of course, he gets out to, he giveth and he taketh. He makes some nice plays in the opener against Tennessee. And then he has 2 just really bad drops. The second game, he has another bad drop in Pittsburgh. These last 2 games, he really has seemed to kind of steady out and has kind of shaken out the rookie jitters, so to speak. And then he really just stepped up to the plate in New York, breaking the ice, getting his first touchdown as a pro. So Jerry Jeudy, there's a stat, I'll find it here, but he, along with CeeDee Lamb, and I think there's one more I'm missing him, has managed to have at least 50 yards receiving in each of his 4 games up to this point. I think that's the stat. I'll double check that while you're talking, Zach. But what would your grade be for Jerry Jeudy through 4 games?
I'm kind of vacillating between B and B+. I mean, I hold the drops against him, but he's the number 1 wide receiver, and he wasn't ready for that distinction just yet. You can't, blame him for the injuries or missing Cortland Sutton. He is the top receiver right now. The drops are no good. The lack of mental concentration is no good, but he atoned for that last week when he mossed the New York defensive back on that touchdown. And his route running, Chad, from week 1 has been superb. So I think he's mostly as advertised. He wasn't going to be the wide receiver 1 right away, and that was supposed to be Cortland Sutton. But I think in that role, overcoming the drops, overcoming the injuries and the quarterback changes and the scheme issues, I'm going to go B. Simple B, straight up.
I'm going to give him a B- only because of the drops. Otherwise, he would get an A- for me. But the thing that I want to kind of latch onto that you said is that he has been as advertised. You expect rookies to kind of have their ups and downs and to, kind of go through that trial and error learning curve and have some early jitters. And we definitely saw that from Jerry Jeudy in those first 2 games. But as you can see here, it might be a little bit hard for you to make out. Let me see if I can blow it up here on my screen a little bit. But this shows you in his 4 games as a pro thus far, he's been targeted 8 times, 7 times, 9 times. Last week in New Jersey, it was only 4 times. So that was the lowest amount up to this point. But in each game, he's totaled at least 50 yards receiving. In fact, he's got 2 games over 50, 2 games over 60, and then he got his first touchdown. So he's in some rarefied air along with CeeDee Lamb. There's one more I'm missing in that.
Jefferson?
Might be Justin Jefferson. But nevertheless, it's very rare for those rookie wide receivers to produce that consistently early on in their rookie career. So I'm gonna say a B- for Jerry Jeudy. And again, I honestly, of all the rookies that we're going to talk about tonight, Zach, I expect Jerry Jeudy's grade to go nowhere but up between now and the end of this season.
Yeah, and comparing him to someone like CeeDee Lamb, I mean, look at what Lamb is dealing with. He has the best passing quarterback in the entire NFL right now. He's surrounded by wide receiver ones, Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. He's going to be fed targets, and he's going to draw the third best cornerback or the third best safety in coverage. Jeudy doesn't have that luxury. He's drawing number one cornerbacks. He's drawing double coverage. He is the guy playing with a third quarterback the Broncos are on in 5 weeks of football. So I think for the most part, considering the circumstances, hold the drops against him, hold the mental miscues against him. But like Kenneth points out, he played through a rib injury. He went up and got a Moss-type touchdown reception. He's playing with vigor and energy and intensity and a chip on his shoulder. So I can't hate too much on Jerry Jeudy.
Great point about the rib injury. He's fighting through injury. He's fighting through pain. That's part of being a pro, and he's still finding a way to produce through it all. So credit to Jerry Jeudy. We'll get to KJ Hamler. Yeah, Kenneth. Amen, my dog. He says, I'm glad the doctor didn't puncture the lung of Jeudy when trying to fix those ribs. Real quick here from Chase Wellner jumping in. Appreciate you, Chase. Good to see you. One of the superstars in our community. Chase, you're one of the guys we ought to get you on the podcast one of these days if that's something you'd be interested. Not everyone is interested in getting up in front of thousands of people and talking off the top of their head. But if it's something you're interested in, reach out to Zach or myself and we'll schedule a time. We'll put you in the queue, so to speak, and get you on the show here down the road. But he says, hey, fellas, is there a rookie you pounded the table for who is killing it so far on another? Zach, the one guy that I am having some envy up to this point is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who just is a perfect fit on that Chiefs offense. And I pounded the table for him in a general sense. I knew the Broncos weren't going to draft a running back, especially after they paid all that money to Melvin Gordon and had Phillip Lindsay and were just a couple years removed from a third-round pick in Royce Freeman. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but he's a guy that you want to talk about envy at this point and regret. He's got to be up there for me.
Jefferson for me. If the Broncos didn't get a receiver in the top end of the first round, I would have liked Jefferson in the tail end. Another guy is Trevon Diggs, the cornerback for the Cowboys. I like Ojemudia. I like the way he's playing in the third, but Diggs is just a number one cornerback already. And the Tristan Wirfs, the tackle for the Buccaneers. I know he went in the top 10 and it was kind of unreachable for the Broncos, but he is a mainstay already. He's a day one starter. We've all seen the issues on the right side of the line with all the other interior issues. It'd be nice for the Broncos to finally have some stability along the offensive line.
All right, let's move on and talk about KJ Hamler and render a grade up to this point. You want to talk about incomplete. Again, it's an incomplete overall grade for all these players because we're only 4 weeks in. Excuse me. But especially with a rookie who's been banged up and hasn't been able to be available in each and every game to the fullest extent. For KJ, it's even more so going to end up being an incomplete grade. But hopefully you guys can see this. If you can't, he's actually appeared in 3 of the 4 games up to this point. In week 2 against Pittsburgh, he saw 48 snaps. The week 3 against Tampa, 58 snaps. So far, he's been targeted, Zach, 12 times. He's got 6 receptions and a total of 78 yards, plus 2 rushes for a net gain of 7 yards. My take on Hamler is I still don't think he hasn't been around long enough and they haven't had continuity enough at the quarterback position for them to kind of realize how to use him quite yet, or to maybe fully realize in a visionary sense how they want to use him. So for me, I'll let you get your grade out, but for me on KJ Hamler, I'm probably going to say a C+ up to this point. And a large part of that is coaching, not quite when he has been available, been able to kind of maximize and feature and focus him, but also the fact that he hasn't been able to stay and get healthy. That hamstring injury, right? It's to the same hamstring, but Vic Fangio told us Friday it's actually it's a new injury, a different part of his hamstring.
That's my thing. I really can't hold injuries against him, but this is one of the reasons I didn't want the Broncos to draft him in the second round after taking Jeudy. I don't want him to be that Deshaun Jackson, constantly injured. When he's on the field, he's good, but he's never on the field. That was my worry, and he's done nothing to alleviate that concern through 5 weeks. I'm giving him a C-. I think it's very well fair for a player of his caliber. He's shown he can have some speed. He hasn't made an impact, though. The more impact you make, the higher grade you get. So I think C- for Hamler, though he's been injured and though it's only 4 weeks, I think it's pretty fair.
This is the first time I actually realized what his initials stand for. Kali Jacoby Hamler. I think that's how you pronounce it. Kali Jacoby Hamler. So we'll see. Let's grab Michael Ojemudia was the next pick. Let me grab his stats real quick. We'll see what his snap count. He's been utilized quite a bit. Zach has Michael Ojemudia. He has started 3 of the 4 games at the outside corner position for Denver. He's played 100% of the defensive snaps, Zach, twice. And in week 3, he played 97% of the snaps. He's got a grand total of, it looks like, 8, 12, 14 tackles and 3 passes defensed. I'll let you start out on this one. What's your grade, incomplete though it might be, on Ojemudia so far?
Well, Ojemutia's snaps are a reflection of the Broncos' injuries, not an indictment on his talent or lack thereof. So he's been thrust into starting duties. This is a guy like Jerry Jeudy. He wasn't meant to be the cornerback 1 or even the cornerback 2. He was going to be the 3rd or 4th guy in the pecking order, and you can argue Bosby should be playing over him. I like some of the things he's done. He has the length. He has the wherewithal that Langley and Yadam didn't have, but he needs to learn how to catch. He needs to learn just basic fundamentals of playing the position. Once he gets those down, I can see a B+ to end the season. For right now, C-, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably give him a slightly better grade, maybe a C, probably a passing grade. He hasn't been great. He's in a couple of games, he's kind of been part of the problem, but he kind of steadied out somewhat after a couple of, forgettable welcome to the NFL type of rookie moments. Let's grab this super chat from Mike Deeringer jumping in, a name, Zach, that we don't recognize on super chat. So
thank you, Mike.
Mike, appreciate you. Welcome. Thank you, my friend. And don't forget, as a newer superstar, to reach out, connect with Zach and I on Twitter so that we can shout you out and tag you on Twitter after this podcast. We also are going to start sharing that tweet in our community on YouTube so that the YouTube community sees that shout out as well. But Mike, thank you, my friend. He says, thanks for the pod. Go Broncos. 80s kids with an exclamation point there. Let's see what Locke has, and let's watch this young team grow. Zach, that's a good point. We'll get back to the grades, but, if this season is indeed lost and their 0-3 start, we talked about the odds yesterday that 538 are giving the Broncos a 14% chance at making the playoffs. We all know that at this point it's more about development, evaluation, seeing what you have. We're really going to learn pretty quickly this season what the Broncos have in the youth of this roster, because so many guys are hurt on the veteran side of things. You're losing one of your young guys, one of your young cornerstone pieces for the season in Cortland Sutton, but it's going to be really interesting to see if Locke can kind of gather the forces again as he comes back off injured reserve, not injured reserve, but similar to last year where he's coming off injury, and see if he can, get everybody fired up and moving in the same direction and raise some ships. Are you a quarterback that can not just do it once as a rookie and kind of be an outlier, but can you be that guy that can raise all ships? Can you be that tide?
I'm not going to go like this about the playoffs. I'm not washing my hands of that possibility. I'm not saying to turn your attention to the 2021 draft just yet, but the Broncos have to know what they have in their young nucleus of talent. And playoffs or no playoffs, injuries or no injuries, the number one question they had to answer this season was, is Drew Lock the guy? Is he the quarterback for the next 5 to 10 years? Is he the franchise guy? So win or lose, record, positive or negative, Chad, we will know hopefully by the end of the season whether Locke can be that guy. It's still not a big enough sample size for my liking. I would have liked a full season and then some, but half the season, most of the season, we should have a better picture of what guys are worth keeping around next year and what guys are worth getting rid of, coaches included.
Yep. All right, let's grab Drew again there, John. Let's get him back on. Talk about a superstar. Drew, by the way, send me that profile pic, dude. Let's get that on MHH Instagram, bro. I know we have you on there once, so let's get you on there twice with both the hat and the face mask like a boss. Love you, buddy. And as his handle, Drew H, buy some swag. Love you, brother.
Drew.
He says, we're so injury riddled that Sly Williams, of all people, is back. I'm upset. Yeah, man, it really is bizarre. You have to wonder, I think obviously the injuries are playing the biggest role in terms of Sly's return here.
Oh, yeah.
But if this wasn't a pandemic influenced season where they kind of, edited the rules on the fly right on the doorstep of the season, where you've got these lax, not only did they elevate, 16 spots on the practice squad from the traditional 10, but you can protect 4 of them. You can elevate 2 of them on game day, all these different factors. I mean, I think without them, I'm not sure Sly does return. And if he does return, it's to the 53. He wouldn't have eligibility on the practice squad.
He wouldn't have come back. It's just the injuries, and it reminds me, like I made the point last night, of the Billy Wynn re-signing last year. They just needed someone familiar to hold the fort until their players come back. I don't hate Williams too much. For a former first-round bust, it's not like bringing back Paxton Lynch or Shane Ray. Williams was, like you mentioned, Chad, he wasn't ever horrible. He just wasn't befitting of a first-round draft pick. So a space eater or run plugger to kind of make some tackles, help out against the run for a couple weeks, I'm okay with it.
See, and I don't view Sly Williams, similarly with Roby, I don't view Williams or Roby as busts. And the big reason why is maybe you could say, as you said, they didn't turn out quite as well as you'd like a first rounder. They're not a lifetime Bronco. But in Sly's case, he started on 2 Super Bowl teams for the squad that drafted him in the first round. And even though he didn't get that second contract, definitely disappointing that he wasn't able to garner that, solid interest and love from the team to keep him around. Because of his contributions, especially that 2015 season and even 2016 as well. I mean, he was a starter as a rookie on the Super Bowl 48 squad, but he didn't become like a bona fide starter till the next year, 14, 15, and 16. He started 3 consecutive seasons for this team. He was available, and you never saw that pass rush become a consistent part of his repertoire. But Zach, that spin move that he had patented, he would only deploy it once in a blue moon, which I never understood why he didn't try to utilize it more. But when he did bring it out of the old toolbox, man, it always caught those guards and centers off balance, and he, would get through. And even if he didn't get the sack, he'd get the hit. So I still have a lot of affection and respect for Sly, but the bloom is definitely off the rose. I mean, he has floated around the NFL the last few years. And the Chargers had some use for him last year, but he didn't even start for the Chargers last year, Zach.
I didn't even know he played for the Chargers last year. I didn't even know he's still in the league. And I had, air quotes around bust. I wouldn't call him a bust, but he's kind of on that borderline. For a first-round pick, you wanted a game-breaking player, an instant impact player, and he just fell just short of that, Chad. He was like Justin Simmons, a defensive lineman, almost.
Shout out to Levi Hope jumping in again on Super Chat, one of our superstars. And
thank you,
Levi. I know you're newer to the club in terms of being a superstar. And I want to say it's going on 6 weeks, maybe a little longer, since you've been consistently in each and every stream. I know you've been listening to the show a lot longer than that, but being able to catch the streams live each and every night, and you don't just catch them, you're supporting what we do here on Super Chat. And for that, we love you, my friend, and appreciate you. We're glad you got your t-shirt. We got that out on MHH Instagram today, which was great. So thanks for sending that in to us as well, my friend. He says, "What's up, fellas? Hope everyone is doing great." We are doing great, man. Life could not be any better. I mean, you wish the Broncos were doing better, but man, hey, football's happening. Everyone's healthy and happy. Things couldn't be better.
One way, Kansas City loses tonight.
There you go. Talk about a superstar. We got Chris Hernandez, 24-year veteran of the Air Force, jumping in here. Reminding everybody, this is especially crucial on YouTube and Facebook. Hashtag, click those little thumbs up. Appreciate the reminder, Chris. Love you, bro. Always good to see you, my friend. All right, Zach, let's get back to our grades. And Blondie Locks, what does it say? Wave if you see my message. We see you. Good to see you. Thanks for being in the stream. All right, let's and that's on Twitch. So welcome in. Good to have you. Let's get to Lloyd Cushenberry, Zach, who was the middle of 3 third-round picks the Broncos had this year. 6'3", 312 pounds. He has started all 4 games for the Denver Broncos at center. He's played 100% of the snaps up to this point, and he even recovered a fumble. But Zach, he started off, I think, auspiciously week 1 against Tennessee. He was solid. But these last 3 games, man, he has struggled. And I don't know whether to attribute that to just his own rookie struggles. He's a rookie trying to figure it out. Or if you attribute that to the fact that the 2 guards next to him, the veterans that are supposed to be, kind of helping him along, have been struggling in their own right. Or if you attribute it, Zach, to the quarterback carousel up to this point, thanks to the injury bug. But Lloyd Cushenberry, let's face it, he hasn't been very good up to this point. Zach, my grade for him would probably be a D+. But this is one of these guys who, even though the grade right now is very low, he's a guy who I think between now and the end of the season has a great opportunity to make up some ground and really elevate that grade by the time it's said and done.
Yeah, I might be in the minority here. I don't see a D grade for Cushenberry. And the factors you mentioned, Chad, take away the quarterback, but the guys next to him are Reisner and Glasgow, two guards who are struggling badly. And you're a rookie center. You're the quarterback of the offensive line. There's constant quarterback changes, new schemes to learn, no offseason. He struggled, yes, but he's also flashed. And at times, he's been quiet. And the question that we received, Chad, the rookie class has been kind of quiet. If that's for Cushenberry, that's a good thing. You don't want to hear his name at all. The more we hear his name, the worse it is. He's had his bad moments. He's had his good moments. I feel it's very rocky up and down. I'm going to go C-. I really love the pick a lot. I love his upside. I think it's the center that the Broncos keep around for more than a couple seasons. I'm really a big fan of his.
All right, let's grab Oscar real quick on Super Chat. Thank you for the support, Oscar. And as a newer member on Super Chat, thank you. Welcome. Stick around. And make sure you connect with Zach and I on Twitter so we can shout you out, my friend. He says, Drew Lock worries me. He's had 2 injuries already. Hopefully it's just bad luck. I'm worried he can't take hits on an NFL level.
I hate this. I hate this, Drew.
I think, honestly, it's a fair concern. I wouldn't utilize it as a means with which to draw an overarching conclusion at this point. Zach, look at, excuse me, look at Matthew Stafford in Detroit, a quarterback. We've talked about this before, who has drawn, Locke has probably drawn the most common comparison to Matthew Stafford, a guy that was plagued by injuries his first 2 years in Detroit. And then he comes back and has a really solid, basically 8-year reign as a 16-game starter and kind of figured out how to better protect himself. I think it's fair for fans to have some concerns about Locke's ability to stay healthy. But as a quarterback up to this point, I have still yet to see anything that makes me doubt that he can't maximize what are very evident and obvious franchise quarterback tools.
I'm going to say it's luck. It's bad luck. It's a fluke. It's not a trend. It's not a pattern. I don't believe in coincidence, but I believe that's what it was. Any quarterback, Chad, they're going to get drilled from behind. You give them no protection, they're going to end up injured. It's not a Drew Lock problem. It's a protection problem. And you saw immediately in the Jets game what could happen when you have a real right tackle instead of a guard pretending to play tackle. Rippon was not sacked one time. Lock would not be injured if they had DeMar Dotson in the game. Last year with the thumb injury, again, that happens. I wouldn't call him brittle. He didn't have the reputation coming out of Missouri. It wasn't one of the red flags, Chad. It happens in the game of football. And when you don't protect your quarterback and you allow him to get injured and take hit after hit after hit, that's the end result.
All right, let's talk about McTelvin Agim, the final of 3 third-round picks the Broncos had this year. And, the first 2 games, he was a healthy scratch because the Broncos had all their bodies basically available weeks 1 and 2. Then the injury bug struck against Pittsburgh. And then, you lose Draymond Jones, you lose DeMarcus Walker, then you lose Jarrell Casey. But he has seen a steady increase in snaps up to this point. Honestly, it's been such a small exposure. I think he barely can qualify for a grade, even in this, very unique set of circumstances. For him, I haven't seen anything on the few snaps that he has received. And by the way, that's 9 snaps in week 3, 17 total snaps last week. And he tallied an assisted tackle last week, by the way. For him, it's basically a little bit more than just an average passing grade because he hasn't done anything to really show out in a negative way. So for me, I'm going to give him a C+. And that's mainly because he hasn't had much exposure up to this point, but I've seen nothing from him that would make me doubt him. And he's got an opportunity, one hell of an opportunity, Zach, because yes, they went out and signed Sly and they signed Darius Kilgo. And, they're going to be, they signed, who's the guy they signed last week? Timmy Jernigan from the free agent pool. But he still has an opportunity to really kind of work his way more into the rotation, stay on the field and get some real experience as a rookie. But what are your thoughts on Agim up to this point?
I hate to be a party pooper, but I can't grade this. I can't give him a grade when we've seen a handful of snaps. Let me just see 1 game of Agim playing, close to starter snaps. Let him get on the stat sheet, and then I'll make my determination. I agree with what you said, though. Nothing has screamed negative. Nothing has screamed positive. So if that's a C, I guess he gets a C.
And that kind of wraps up the rookie class who have seen exposure up to this point. I mean, with what remains, you have Albert Okwuegbunam, who has not been active for a single game yet. Justin Street, who was injured. He's done for the season in training camp. Netani Muti, who is not dressed yet for a game. Actually, let me double check that on Muti. He might have dressed, but he hasn't played yet. Tyree Cleveland and Derek Tuska have seen some exposure. Tuska on special teams, and then Tyree Cleveland has seen a few snaps. Actually was healthy and dressed and played in week 1. And then Sutton's gone down, and I think you'll start continuing to see more and more of him, especially because Deshaun Hamilton hasn't really been able to maximize his opportunities up to this point. And now you got Hamler down again. So I think you're going to see a lot more Zach and Tyree Cleveland in the near future, and probably through the duration of this season. Derek Tuska, if he could find a way to crack the defensive lineup and get a few rotations in there as an edge rusher, just in relief of Jerry Atachu and Bradley Chubb, maybe we could have something. But, really it's just those first 5 picks that we've been able to see much from up to this point.
Yeah, he has a great opportunity, though. Him and Najim have just immediate paths to playing time because of injuries. And if they can just take advantage of those, we will have a grade on them, soon.
WE jumping in with the super chat. Thank you, my friend. Bringing up a good point. It's very fair. He says, I think the narrative about Ojemudia changes if he catches those interceptions. He could have 3. I'm giving him a solid B. And that's fair, man. Hey,
if
beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? And it really just kind of depends on how you weigh the factors. He definitely has had a chance to improve or to produce better than he has, but Zach, he hasn't. That's the problem. That's why his grade is what it is up to this point for us. But I still am high on Ojemudia. I still think that he has a really productive and positive career as a Bronco ahead of him. I don't see the same kind of warning signs of Isaac Yadam and Brendan Langley before him. I do think he's going to turn out and be at least a solid draft pick investment for this team.
I think his upside is that of a career cornerback too. And you know what? In the 3rd round, that could be worse for the Broncos. You always love to have that guy like a Bradley Roby. Like you said, though, he didn't make those picks. He didn't catch the ball. So the Broncos, you can make, if certain things broke a certain way, they could be 4-0 right now. They're not, though. So Ojemudia, he has to catch those passes. If he could, I would grade him higher, but he didn't, so I graded him lower. Yes,
John, we did grab Oscar. We're good there. All right, Zach, we're sitting here about the 46-minute mark, and of course there is a very interesting game going on right now. What is the score? I don't know what the score is of the Chiefs and Patriots. I'd be curious to know. I know a lot of fans are watching and listening to this live stream podcast at the same time. Here's a comment.
6-3 still. Wow.
Still 6-3. Interesting. Okay. Here's an interesting comment from Quincy on Facebook. And by the way, Quincy, it's been great having you in the streams and contributing to the conversation. So welcome and stick around and keep it going, my friend. He says, I support any and every Broncos player except Hamilton. I like Locke, but if he gets hurt again, we should consider getting a quarterback early in next year's draft. And Zach, that kind of brings up an interesting article that our Bob Morris had yesterday at milehighhuddle.com. I'm sure most of you have read this article. But Bob did some painstaking research to basically look at the number 1 overall pick historically, at least since like 91 or 92, basically the last 30 some odd years of the NFL. And what his conclusion that he came to is, regardless of what happens with Drew Lock this year, let's say he comes back and plays well. If the Broncos land the number 1 pick overall, his conclusion is that you have to take Trevor Lawrence because he's just that kind of a quarterback. I'm not sure I'm on the same page with Bob on that, but it's a very well researched and well thought out piece. I'm just don't quite draw the same conclusion that Bob did, but everyone should go read that article.
Well, you have to be in position to draft him as well. So even if Locke gets injured, he's not the guy. If you're picking 8th or 9th, unless you're going to trade the house, you're not going to get Trevor Lawrence. So they have to finish with the number 1 overall pick. And I just don't see that happening. I don't see Lawrence coming to Denver. The only way they're going to get him, they either sell the entire farm, which I don't see Elway doing in maybe his last year as the GM, or they get the number 1, maybe number 2 overall pick to mitigate the cost. I don't see either of those scenarios playing out. I think, though, I will say this. If Locke gets hurt again, the Broncos will get another quarterback. I just don't know where in the draft or who it will be, but they will bring someone else in for at least competition next summer.
Let's grab Kenneth Booker's comment here. Thanks for the super chat, my brother. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Kenneth.
He says, Locke gets hurt when he plants his hand down, then going down. So in other words, it's natural for any human being. As you're falling, you want to catch your fall, right? You put your arm down. He needs to cover the ball and live to play another down. I broke my wrist the same way. And I think that's true, Zach. And again, It's not victim blaming. I don't think in this case that Drew Lock just kind of has to learn. And this was something even Mike talked about yesterday on the podcast when he joined us, that, you just have to learn that, you got to live to fight another down. There's however many snaps, 70 something snaps on average in a given game. And if Lock has had this bad of luck early on with the injury bug, hopefully there's been some kind of a takeaway. And I think it's more attributable to luck, like you said, to be honest with you, Zach, but it's happened twice now, and he's just got to learn how to better protect himself, and he'll be a better quarterback for it.
To me, no offense, Kenneth, it is victim blaming, because if you protect him, he's not going to get injured. If you protect the quarterback, the offense gets better, and Locke didn't have that. Locke had an unstable guard playing tackle, 2 unstable guards, a rookie center, and a pretty good left tackle in Garrett Bowles. Brett Rippon had more of protection, more of a luxury than Locke had in his starts. So I don't really fault him for wanting to make a play. I said this on last night's pod. It's just the way Drew is wired. He is a gunslinger. He is a backyard football type who makes plays and kind of ad-libs, like a Favre, Mahomes, Romo, anyone like that. If you expect him to be a game manager or an Alex Smith or a Kirk Cousins, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Speaking of protecting Drew Lock, Roger Gutke, one of our Facebook supporters. Love you, Roger. Appreciate you, my friend. His question is, do you think DeMar Dotson will be the starter for the rest of the season? I certainly hope so. And Zach, that kind of is a nice segue to bring up an interesting article that was published today at milehighhuddle.com. You guys should go check it out when you get some time. But Vic Fangio was asked directly about DeMar Dotson when he got back from the trip to New Jersey. And I'll tell you, here's what he said about DeMar Dotson's first game. Quote, "I think Dot went in and did a good job. He was obviously rusty, but he's a veteran. And once it's identified who he has to block, he does a good job of getting that done. I expect him to improve next week. I think he'll be even better next week than he was yesterday." Close quote. So, Dotson, we talked about it in the gut reaction. We talked about it last night with Mike. Dotson was a revelation. I mean, his impact at right tackle, even though the rust was falling off in chunks, this was his first meaningful game or action in 2020. It was falling off in chunks, but it was palpable, the impact, Zach, he made at right tackle. And, Pro Football Focus, they credited him with 4 pressures allowed, no QB hits, and no sacks. Of course, Rippon was not sacked in week 4, but they did, PFF, credit him with 4 pressures. I'm not sure I'd have to go back and watch every single snap on the coach's film. I can think of 2 times where I noticed him giving up some pressure that kind of influenced the play, influenced the quarterback. But nevertheless, it was leaps and bounds from a consistency and a competency perspective above Elijah Wilkinson.
Dot, cool nickname, Vic. Thanks for not playing him for 4 weeks. It means what he's saying means little and less to me. He has to be the starter. I don't know if Wilkinson wasn't injured, would he be the starter? And that's scary and depressing to think about. But I think based on how he performed, he was the best Broncos right tackle I think I've seen since I started covering the team. The only other contender in there was Jared Veldheer. So Dotson was an immediate upgrade. And what do we expect? He was a 9-year starter, 100 career starts in Tampa Bay. He came off the scrap heap, inserted right away. He sat for a while, but he was always going to be better than Wilkinson because for the simple reason he's a natural right tackle. What a concept.
I can't wait to see Drew Lock behind, because right now I think it is I wrote about this today. I think this is your best starting 5 that's available to you today. They're out on the field. Dotson and Bowles at tackle, Reisner and Glasgow at guard, and Cushenberry at center. And now hopefully you get a chance for the 5 to kind of play together and have some cohesion, establish some cohesion and chemistry. And then when you get Drew Lock back, man, you can really get off to the races. I think it's going to be a very big difference by the time Lock does get back under center, because Wilkinson, again, he's a great try-hard guy. The Broncos, especially in the light of all these injuries, they need great do-good guys. And so, you wish a speedy recovery to Elijah Wilkinson, but it's good that Dotson's on the field right now. And 6'10", Adon jumping in to echo Zach. He says, Zach's right. Protect your QB. Let him do his job. When Locke comes back, we should see a much more calm and cooler version of him.
I mean, guys, we saw this with Josh Rosen. We saw this with David Carr. We see this a lot where young quarterbacks don't get the protection and it stunts them. It's like an infant or a toddler. What you teach them in that period stays with them. You can shape the course of their life and how they respond and how they act and their personality traits and their afflictions. And when you have a quarterback constantly retreating and constantly worried about being hit, look at Driscoll. Yeah, he didn't have the greatest, awareness and headiness as a quarterback, but when you're pressured on every single snap, you're going to be drifting back too. You're going to be escaping the pocket too. I can't fault Drew Lock for his injury. I can't fault Drew Lock for his ineffectiveness. You fix the protection. You fix the entire offense. We saw it last week, and to echo your point, I cannot wait to see Lock behind a real right tackle.
Congrats to Duke, by the way. We've mentioned it once on this podcast, but Duke has a brand new granddaughter. And so congratulations to Duke Boynton.
Congrats, dude.
And to your daughter as well. So
very cool.
A proud Grampy right here in Duke Boynton. And of course, as always, we thank you for the support, Duke. And it's always good staying in touch and seeing what's going on in your life, my friend, on social media. He says, John Buona Beast is one of the most underrated mods ever. He is Johnny on the spot in every single live pod. Well done, Beast. You're awesome. So John Cronenberg, the producer / mod of this podcast, and he spends so much time on YouTube, in the comment section, keeping the conversation going on Twitter, engaging with everybody. He is very much so one of the unsung heroes at MHH, and very much helps Zach and I keep the party rolling.
John is the unsung hero of this podcast, and everyone out there, go follow him at John K MHH. Show him some love.
Show him some love. All right, we are coming up against it. We'll grab one or two more, and then we'll get out of here for tonight. Dennis Woods, another just consistent superstar. And Dennis, the invitation is open. If you ever want to come on the show, reach out, let us know. We'll set it up, my friend. We'd love to talk with you. Again, not everyone's interested in doing that. Not everyone is wants to come on the show. But if you want to, you just say the word. Appreciate your support as always. No preseason and an abbreviated offseason affects development of rookies more than others. I'm waiting till next year to make a serious judgment. I like what I've seen, though. He's speaking overall to the 2020 rookie class. And I concur with Dennis that I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. My only regret is just the luck this team has had with the injury bug has put more pressure and onus and kind of forcing these young guys to grow up a little bit faster than they might have originally been expected to by the team. But, it's a crucible. And it's a trial by fire, and it's a refiner's fire. There's three analogies for you right there. These guys have to come out of this better for it, these rookies. And I think from what we're seeing from the guys we were able to at least analyze on tonight's show, they are, Zach.
I concur to a point because, the Broncos were affected by a shortened offseason and no training camp, but so were 31 other teams. And some other teams, like we mentioned, have rookies that are performing very well right now. We named them to start the show tonight. So it was hurting the Broncos specifically, having a new quarterback or a first-time starter, having a new coordinator, having these new moving pieces. It does affect them, but I wouldn't wait until next year. We have to have the answers. Not we will have or hope to have. We better have the answers over the course of the rest of this season, at least pertaining to quarterback and some of the other starters on this team, offense and defense.
All right, let's grab this last super chat from bona fide superstar, Black Knight 232. Good to see you, my friend. By the way, how is the tournament going with the gaming squad? Hope that's going well. Maybe you haven't had a chance to suit up, as it were, and get back into action, but hope that's going well for you, my friend. He says, so if the 2021 draft was to be held tomorrow, what position are you looking to upgrade? Edge, offensive tackle, or a coverage linebacker? Some fans right now are shouting to their phones, quarterback. I'm telling you, some fans are. But what would your answer be here for Black Knight 232?
It's got to be protection for the quarterback. It goes franchise quarterback, then franchise left tackle. On the Broncos, if they don't sign Garrett Bowles and Juwan James is Juwan James, they might not have two starting tackles, and whoever's going to play quarterback next year is going to suffer. I would for sure run that draft card up. It depends on where the Broncos are picking too, but it's got to be a tackle. It has to.
Yeah, I would, if it were tomorrow. I'm just trying to look ahead because Dotson, we don't want to jinx him. It's his first game. I agree that I think he has a chance to be just as good of a right tackle in the post-Manning era as a Jared Veldheer, but I want to see him get a couple of games under his belt before I come to that conclusion. But nevertheless, He's 34 years old. He's here on a 1-year deal. Juwan James is still young enough, got plenty of football left ahead of him, but you don't know what's in here. You don't know what's in that guy's heart. I mean, everyone's got a unique situation, and we make fun and whatnot of Juwan James, and we have on this show, but he made what he felt like was the right decision for him and his family by opting out. But if you're the Denver Broncos, how can you trust him going forward as a football player, especially in light of the weird developments last year with his injury and the way that was postured and presented in the court of public opinion, especially by season's end. So if I'm the Denver Broncos, I know I've got Juwan James under contract and I'm tied down to that money next year. Excuse me. But I've got to get, and I still don't know what's up with Garrett Bowles. So it's got to be an offensive tackle. And even if you get Drew Lock back, and this question is, what would you do at the end of the season if the draft is held at its traditional time? What are you going to do? Even if Drew Lock comes back and is fair to middling or even struggles a little bit, I'm still not. It depends on the exact shape of how those struggles would take place. I'm still a long ways out from saying give up on Lock, time to get another quarterback. I'd be more interested in continuing to build that nest around him at this point than, throwing in the towel and go and get the next shiny quarterback, the next best one you can get, depending on where you're picking in the draft.
I want to just point out one more thing, and then people might disagree with this line of thinking, but it doesn't matter if it's Trevor Lawrence, Drew Lock, Fields. It doesn't matter who your quarterback is if you can't protect him. And Rippon showed last week, he's not the most impressive quarterback physically, Brett Rippon, but he won. He hung in there, and he delivered the Broncos a victory. And having Trevor Lawrence behind this offensive line with Juwan James and all these uncertainty and all these questions, it'd be like having a Ferrari busted rims. You got to do it the right way. You got to build from the ground up and do things the correct way. And that's what they have to do. Tackle, offensive line all day, Chad.
Kenneth making the point again. Thanks for the super chat, my friend. He says, Zach, Locke hurt his thumb the same way. He was in that San Francisco game, falling and trying to kind of catch himself, landed awkward. So again, I do think there needs to be some kind of a takeaway for Locke in terms of, when you go through any sort of adversity in life, you got to try and find the silver lining. You got to find the lesson you can take home to either avoid that type of an adversity in the future or overcome that adversity in the future. And I think he can. And Drew H., by the way, jumping back in, love you, brother.
Thank you.
He says, Drew Lock is a franchise guy. He needs protection, period, Zach. And with that, I'll let you kind of close out the conversation for the night. We'll get out of here.
No, I respect Kenneth Booker's, his point of view here. He's not the first quarterback who landed on his hand and hurt his thumb. He's not the first quarterback who hurt his shoulder. And to Locke's credit, he's going to come back this season. We're pretending again like he's out for the year. He's coming back in a few weeks, and he will be healthy, hopefully. Again, I don't believe in coincidence. I don't really believe in luck per se, but I don't really think he's injury prone either. It doesn't have to be exclusive. It was two fluky things. The second was a lack of protection. The first was he fell on his hand and braced his fall. Yeah, maybe the takeaway is when you fall, tuck your arm. Don't put your hand out. That's the only thing. But I'm not going to fault Drew. I'm not going to victim blame Drew for getting hurt.
All right, guys, we got to get out of here for tonight. Shout out to Steve Griffith for spending some time with us. Great to catch up and meet him in the flesh, so to speak. Thank you, Steve, for making some time for us, my friend. In the meantime, guys, make sure you are connected with us on social media. The best ways to do that is to follow the podcast on Twitter at HuddleUpPod, and then the main account at Mile High Huddle. And then whatever you do, follow my partner on Twitter, Zach Kelberman, at Kelberman NFL, myself, at Chad and Jensen. And then you also want to stay connected with Mr. Producer, Mr. Mod himself, John Cronenberg on Twitter. It's at John KKAYMHH. Connect with John. I trust me when I say you'll enjoy being connected with him on social media. It's a very fun follow. Gentle reminder, check out the merch store and get your swag on, huddleuppod.com. Get a hat, get a t-shirt, get a mug, a face mask, a hoodie, a little something for everybody. Whatever you do, guys, if you're with us live, or if you end up enjoying this live stream, this podcast after the fact, please like the video. And if you really think we're doing a good job, again, a reminder, share this out there. Help us continue to grow and reach new like-minded Broncos fans just like you. And then, Zach, we're out of here. We're off tomorrow night. Of course, it's Building the Broncos. It'll be fun to hear what Nick and Carl have to say about the upcoming matchup. But we'll be back in the saddle on Wednesday night. So have a great start to your week, my friend.
You too, and we'll talk some Patriots Wednesday. Get ready for Week 5, and hopefully we'll learn some more tonight from the Patriots, win or lose.
A mile high salute to our Super Chat superstars and our Facebook supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much. And to each and every one of you for joining us live or listening to this after the fact, if you're with us live, what really makes it so much more enjoyable for Zach and I is you guys. Thanks, Steve. Love you, buddy. You guys help influence the content. You guys help create the conversation. And that's one of the things that keeps Zach and I coming back for more and setting up the stream and doing it day in, day out. So thanks to each and every one of you for joining the show live here and contributing to the conversation in your own way. But we got to dip out for now. Zach and I will be back Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern. But don't miss Building the Broncos tomorrow night, same time, 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 Eastern. For Zach Kelberman, I'm Chad Jensen. We will talk to you guys Wednesday night.